But right now we are joined by the Libertarian candidate for governor 2018, Rex Lawhorn. Rex, are you there?
I am here. Thank you for having me on, Chad.
Oh, it's my pleasure. We'd like to have all the governor's candidates on. We're making our way through the list, but there's a lot of them, and the list is growing, by the way.
Yes, it is.
So, talk about, I guess, June 10th, you're going to start making rounds and meet and greets and kind of launching your campaign.
Yeah, we actually launched a few weeks ago. We've got a pretty good support base already, but we thought it was time to start making our way around the state and meeting people face-to-face, giving them opportunity to learn a little bit about libertarian principles and what we can actually do for Oklahoma. So June 10th, I'll be meeting a group at the Hudson Public House at 7 p.m., the one at 27th East Sheridan down in Bricktown.
Okay, that's great.
Start meeting some people face-to-face.
That's great. Well, let's talk about it. You're a libertarian, and anybody listening to me knows that I have a little bit of a civil libertarian streak in me in a lot of situations. Actually, a lot of civil libertarian streak in me in situations. But talk about what your platform is going to be. What are you going to run on?
Well, I tell you, the two biggest things that I'm working on are the two biggest things that any candidate should be running on regardless of party, and that's in education and the economy. Our education system's in the tank, and that's directly led to our economic opportunities being into the tank as well.
So what are your proposals? What are you thinking about to challenge that, change the system?
Well, I tell you, I'm starting with education. I've identified about $400 million that we could save right off the bat and put straight back into the classrooms just because of some wasteful spending that we've got in higher education and a lot of administrative inefficiencies that we've got down at the K through 12 level. Just as an example, we've got 529 school districts, and that's about 220 more than Kansas does. Now, granted, we've got more students than they do, but they have the same economic challenges and the same geographical challenges as far as where their economic bases are and such. So we could do a lot to model their type of program, such thing as consolidated school districts, unified school districts, which isn't necessarily closing schools. That's just eliminating $70 million in payroll in administrative costs, and that can go straight into the classroom.
It was interesting. Last year, we had a dependent school district, which is K through 8, and they were voting to consolidate the administration to the school district it feeds into, that's the 9 through 12. So there's already a superintendent for that school district that goes all the way from K to 12, and the dependent school district's just K to 8. But when their kids go to 9th grade, they move into a different school system. And it was just a House committee vote just to take that dependent school district, which is failing, and put it under the administration of the independent school district that their kids end up in high school anyway. And when that couldn't get out of committee last year, I thought, if that's not going to get out of committee, I just don't know what's going to work.
Yeah, we've got a real dysfunctional legislature and have had for, over a decade now, where they like to spend time talking about license plates and reflecting pools, but aren't dealing with the issues that we're facing. It's like this economic crisis that we're going through right now with the unbalanced budget. They've known that was coming for 2 years. Everybody who has paid attention to government has known that we were going to be facing a crisis in this budget cycle, and they did absolutely nothing to address it. And they're doing the same thing with economic development. Todd Lamb was slated to be the head of economic development for 7 years, and we're worse off now than we were 7 years ago with a dedicated person paying attention to it. It's just they don't have their eyes on the prize. They don't have the right priorities going on right now.
And what kind of things do you want to do to stimulate the economy?
Well, to stimulate the economy, we've got to make Oklahoma an attractive place for people that want to do business. People don't want to bring a company to a state that's got the 49th worst education system in the country. They want a place that's got good transportation systems, good roads, public transportation systems. They want their employees to have good education opportunities for their kids. And that's what we need to focus on, is making this an attractive place to do business. And nobody has been interested in that in government for the last 2 decades, more or less.
And this was an issue last session, but there was lots of talk and a lot of support from some people, the general public, more than some people in the legislature, about a 6-cent tax on fuel per gallon, because 40% of it would have been paid by people traveling through the state, I-35 and I-40. And a lot of the damage that is done and the repairs that we are making from our state tax dollars is done by those heavy trucks that are crossing the crossroads of America is what we call it.
Yes.
What was your opinion on that?
Well, first of all, if we had a more of a private road system or a public-private partnership on those roads would be engineered better. The way the government, and this isn't just unique to Oklahoma, this is nationwide, they engineer the side roads and the arterial roads to be, the minimum standard for whatever traffic is going to be on it. And that leads to increased maintenance costs later on, thicker road beds, thicker bases, stronger materials. If we had more of a public-private partnership where they weren't looking for just the least expensive method that they could do it in, which would actually be the most efficient in the long run, we wouldn't be facing some of the issues we face today. There's an intersection up here in Tulsa at 412, and it's now at the Creek Turnpike, but 4 decades ago, we were riding on that road, and might as well have been horse and buggy speeds because it was in such poor condition. And here 4 decades later, it's not much better than that. And we've got to start looking at doing things more efficiently for the long haul. There is going to be no quick fix for putting Oklahoma in the top tier of states, and that's simply because it's dealing with decades of degradation and, legislative mismanagement.
Well,
so it's going to be a long haul, and we've got a lot of different things we need to prioritize. But first thing we need to do is get money coming into this state.
When I was at College Republicans in 1994, we hosted the first Republican candidate forum with all the Republicans that were running. And at that time, Frank Keating, this was obviously before he was governor, he was running for the first time, said that I-35 had been under construction since he was in college or law school. It was still under construction, and that was 1994, or actually December 1993, we had that forum, and it's still under construction today.
Absolutely.
And
we've got examples of that all over the state.
And let's talk about that. We have a reoccurring funding problem. We've used a lot of one-time funds year in, year out to do this, and our credit was downgraded this year. How do we fill the gap? How do we have as much money coming in as what we're paying for?
Oh, we stopped creating the gap. I mean, we're like I was talking about earlier, spending $27 million on a luxury hotel in the state park, building a reflecting pool. The entire backside of the Capitol right now is shaded in canvas because they're doing an entire remodel. There's something down there in the basement. When you're first walking into the Capitol building, they've got an entire list of how many miles of wiring and how many miles of pipe that they're replacing in the Capitol building. Everything was working. I mean, it might not have been upgraded in modern standard, but it was working. And we have a beautiful Capitol building, and we are in an economic crisis. So why are we spending hundreds of millions of dollars on all these luxury projects when we can't even take care of the basics? The key is taking care of the basics and letting the luxuries wait until we have a surplus. Until then, we need to tighten our belts and stop creating that gap to begin with. That's the answer.
Well, we need to go to a break. Can you hold on and we'll come back after the break with you?
You bet. I'll be right here.
All right. We're going to go to a break. We'll be back with Rex Lawhorn, the Libertarian running for governor 2018. Stay with us. Welcome back. I am Chad Alexander, and we're still doing our gubernatorial series. We've had Scott Inman on so far. We've had State Auditor Inspector Gary Jones on. We've had Gary Richardson on. And we're going to continue our communications with Drew Edmondson to schedule for him to come on. In communications with Mick Cornett and with Todd Lamb. So we were going to have all the candidates on, including right now the 2018 candidate for governor for the Libertarian Party, Rex Lawhorn. Rex, you still with us?
I am here.
Absolutely. I appreciate you coming on today, and we give everybody a chance to lay out their ideas and their goals. My job's not to judge, it's to let people get their own issues out there that they're taking to the people of Oklahoma. I only get one vote for governor just like everybody else, so I'm trying to make sure that people are as informed as possible about candidates that are out there. So I'm glad you guys contacted me, and I'm glad you were able to come on today. So thanks for joining us.
Yes, thank you very much. It's a great service you're providing.
Let me ask you this. I mean, there was a lot about criminal justice reform this year in the legislature. Over the next 10 years, we continue at this pace, it's about $200 million a year. Is that going to be part of your platform?
Yes, it is. And as everything develops and we figure out what's going to happen with 780 and 781, by the time the legislator gets done telling the Oklahoma people what they're allowed to think, we'll have a more defined platform on that, but we'd really like to return to the original language of 780 and 781 and decriminalize the crimes that don't have a victim, because it's kind of hard to have a crime when you don't have a victim.
Well, and I think you're referring to House Bill 1482, which passed the House with 51 votes, and then the Senate didn't hear it.
Yes.
But in its original form, yes, it would have basically eliminated 780 and 781. So as we talk, we got one more segment. You know, what out there? What do you want the people of Oklahoma to know about you? Who is Rex Lawhorn?
Rex Lawhorn is just a guy that has been in Oklahoma for quite a while now, and I've worked in oil and aerospace. I'm working for a wholesale auto paints distributor now. I've worked in telecommunications. I'm a blue-collar guy that has been around, seen the world, have an education in economics and a passion for policy. And I've just been watching our legislator take us down and down and down, and it's time to do something different.
And let me ask you.
We used to think that Go ahead.
No, you go ahead. You're running for governor.
We used to think that the Republicans were the small government party, right? That they were the people that were going to make sure that our dollars were spent wisely and on projects that we needed them spent on. And we always thought that they were the upstanding moral, they were going to do what's right by the people. And, you just have to look back at the last session to see that that's all a bunch of hogwash. There's no difference between the currently elected Republicans and the Democrats. So that gives a good window for the Libertarians to step in and make up for the mistakes that the Republicans have made and, deal with the fiscal issues that the Democrats refuse to.
Let me ask you this. Running for governor is not cheap in the state of Oklahoma.
It is not.
You've got several media markets. You got the Oklahoma City television market. You got the Tulsa television market. You got the Lawton television market. Ada. Actually, you have to go into some other state media markets to hit some of these rural areas that are on the border that actually don't even get Oklahoma City TV.
Right, Amarillo up there for Guyman and.
Yeah, and so if you're how with being a libertarian without kind of that party, as big a party base as the other two parties have, do you plan on being able to fund a campaign?
Yes, absolutely, and we're going to do it in a lot cheaper fashion than either the Democrats or the Republicans. They tend to rely more on the visual media, the television, the radio, the newspapers. We're going to go out there and we're going to take it state to state. We've got a good grassroots campaign and a good group of people that are putting the word out there through social media. And there are a lot more people engaged on social media than there are through any of the other individual markets.
Agreed.
So that's the best bang for our buck right now. Plus, we're also going to have face-to-face contact. I've made it a goal to have an open town hall in every county in Oklahoma by the time the election gets here.
Yeah, and I will tell you, social media has changed a lot. I mean, Donald Trump spent a lot less money than Hillary Clinton, but he had a guy out of San Antonio named Brad Pascal who's done his corporate stuff for 13 years, doing his digital work for the campaign, and through Facebook and Twitter and social media, spent a lot less, but had a lot more effect and impact in a lot of the swing states.
Yeah, and we're expecting the same thing to happen here in Oklahoma in the gubernatorial race.
So, people could sometimes be dismissive of if you're not a Republican or you're a Democrat, you're running for office, whether it's an independent or a libertarian. What would you say to those people that say, well, he's a libertarian, I like his ideas, but I may not think he can win?
Well, here's the thing. The fact that we are having all of these identity politics issues to begin with is part of the reason that we have such a contentious presidential race this last time around. I mean, really, how could we have gotten any worse candidates up there than Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton? And, that directly reflected on the third-party voter turnout. We had our presidential candidate, Gary Johnson, he got over 6% here in Oklahoma. That he got more votes in the presidential race nationwide than any other, I believe, than all the other candidates combined in the history of the Libertarian Party. And the Green Party had similar successes and set similar records in varying locations throughout the country. We're starting to get away from that identity politics, and there are a lot of people that still identify, I'm a Republican, I'm going to vote Republican because I believe in the Republican principles. But then you've got people like Ralph Shorty going out there and just trashing the Republican principles and saying, hey, maybe these aren't the people that I thought they were. So there's a transition going on in American politics right now, and it's going on here in Oklahoma also.
I think the polarization is what people are really, really tired of. And I said, when I think Donald Trump won, I think it was nothing is working in Washington, so we're just throwing a Molotov cocktail at them.
Exactly. And that's kind of the same mentality that we're hoping is going on here in Oklahoma, because we've had the same types of hypocrisy and going against the principles, of the legislators. We've had the deal with Hoffmeister and her campaign issues. There's been a lot of people complaining about Mary Fallon and how she's abandoning the platform. Oklahoma's ready for something different.
Well, I tell you what, go ahead and give people where you're going to have your kickoff at again, and that information and how they can show up.
Sure, June 10th, 7 p.m. If you can find the group on Facebook, it would be helpful if you would RSVP, but it's not required, at the Hudson Public House in Bricktown there in Oklahoma City, starting it off right there by the Capitol.
And what time is that?
7 p.m.
7 p.m. Okay. Well, Rex, thanks for joining us on the show today. Good luck with your campaign.
Thank you, Chad. We'll talk to you soon.
Absolutely.